Okay, it looks like we're live on Livestream on YouTube. And thanks for a lot of folks joining on Zoom as well. So happy May to everybody. Hopefully everybody's having had a good month. So my name is Ray Pake. I'm the head of community at Cube. Another edition of the monthly call, and I'm sharing my screen. Hopefully everybody can see it. If you can give me a thumbs up, if you can, that'd be great. All right, awesome. Cool. So yeah, without further ado, let's get started. As we always do, just a quick reminder on our code of conduct. Like all good open source communities, we want to have a welcoming and safe environment for people to participate. So a reminder of the full text of the code of conduct and the email alias if you have any thing that you want to discuss regarding code of conduct there. So a few quick things that we want to discuss today. I mean, it's a pretty typical agenda, I guess, by now. We've had a lot of community news over the past few weeks, so just want to recap those. We have Louis Zuckerman from Simon Data, who wrote a great piece on user data that's on the call. He'll be here to sort of introduce himself, Simon Data, and then answer any questions. And then we also have feature demos. You'll probably notice that the Cube store is a big theme this week. So we have a couple of things that Hassan and others will go over. If you have any questions, feel free to, unmute yourself and ask questions as we go along, or feel free to type them in chat on Zoom, or type your questions even if you're on the live stream listening in. Just type your questions there. I'll try to monitor those during the call as we go along. Cool. So without further ado, let's jump into our first topic, community news. I think it was like the last week of April, we had a lot of announcements that you probably saw on Slack and Twitter. First one was the official introduction of Cube Store, which is our storage layer for pre-aggregations, and Igor wrote a great blog post introducing Cube Store. We'll go over that a little bit more during the feature demo later on, but if you haven't read it yet, I encourage you to read the blog post to get a good overview of what Cube Store is. And we also had a 0.27 release, and Hassan posted a release note on our discourse, and let me go there really quick. And one of the cool things that we wanted to highlight, Hassan went over all the important new features in 0.27, in addition to Cube Store, like improvements on authentication, authorization, view integration, developer playground. But we also listed community members who helped us since the 0.26 release. So we listed all the names, Hassan did listed all the names here. If we're missing any of you, please let us know. But want to keep this sort of going forward and recognize community members for contributing to our software. So that was the release note that was on the forum. And the other thing, we sort of did this quietly. I think many of you, if you're listening to the community call, a lot of you are subscribed to our YouTube channel. We created a new playlist called Getting Started. And Hassan got us started with a couple of videos there that we started embedding a lot of the videos on documentation. For example, like getting started with like a Docker Compose, for example, there's a short video clip there that you can watch along with reading through the documentation. So we only have like 3 videos there right now, but we plan to add more of them into our new playlist. So happy to get those going. Feel free to check them out and let us know if you have any questions or other suggestions. Finally, speaking of low latency and high concurrency with Cube Store, our very own Igor will be speaking at Percona Live sessions tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern time. So if you're I believe the event started today or starting today. So if you're attending Percona Live, we want to encourage you to listen to Igor's sessions. We're all looking forward to it. And hopefully they'll be recording, they'll be available after the event as well, in case you're not able to attend. And once that's available, I'll make sure that Igor advertises them on various channels. But we're looking forward to that. But wanted to give you all a heads up that that's coming tomorrow. Cool. Speaking of events, I announced this on the Slack channel as well. We wanted to get a sense of different industry events like a lot of our community members are attending. So I created a poll on our forum. I mean, forum has a nice polling feature. So I wanted to sort of try that out. And I really want to encourage people that during my one-on-one conversations with a lot of community members, I got a sense in terms of which events, I mean, especially pre-pandemic, that people have typically attended, especially in person. We wanted to get a sense as to the interest level for various events. And I mean, we're thinking of, I mean, we don't have any firm plans yet, but you know, if there are a lot of us from Cube that are going to be at events like reInvent or Cube Cloud Next, we're thinking if a lot of the community members are also there, we could organize at the very least like a fun events like a happy hour to meet our community members in person. So that will be very, very helpful. So if you haven't done this yet, I encourage everyone to take the poll. I mean, if you haven't logged into Discourse before, it'll ask you to log in order to participate in a poll, but it should be pretty simple. I mean, you don't have to create a separate login. You can just log in with your GitHub, Twitter, or Gmail ID. So we enable social logins. So hopefully it'll make it easy for you to participate, not just in the poll, but in the forum discussions in general. In terms of our forum in general, I've been pretty happy with the uptake. I've typically, I mean, been seeing over the past couple of weeks, like a 300 to 400 page views from a number of different places. We enable Google Analytics on the forum as well, and we've seen people from like South America, South Africa, and other parts of Asia and also parts of Asia that we didn't even know that we had community members there. So it's been good to see, and wanted to recognize, like, we advertise through Twitter, people that are helping us get started in the forum. So I started sending out swags. You'll see the pictures here last week, and I already got an email or Slack message from somebody in New York that they already received a pin, and I already mailed it out on Friday. So that was good to see, and very happy to do this. And yeah, I want to encourage everybody to start participating in discussions and starting conversations. So that's about it for the community updates. I'm just going to monitor the chats and the questions here on the live stream, make sure there aren't any questions. If not, I guess without further ado, we'll move on to the next topic. Yeah, we published the blog post was published on the May 4th, and you'll notice that this was almost entirely written by Lewis, who's online. The previous blog post, I think a lot of us at Cube sort of took the lead in doing the writing, but Lewis did a wonderful job of send us a draft, and there was really nothing that we really need to do except to provide a few feedback here and there. So we really appreciate that, and appreciate the level of detail, Lewis, you went through in terms of what your challenges were, and then especially the amount of effort that you put into deploy Cube.js. So wanted to thank you and the team for contributing to the community with the blog post. And I also want to encourage others, like in the past, like I said, we took the lead into doing sort of the writing, but that really doesn't have to be the case. If you want to just contribute your writing, and we want to preserve your voice, if you're interested in doing that, please let us know. I'm happy to feature another user story as a blog post. So without further ado, let me go to the screen where the blog post is. And Louis, I'll be happy to sort of scroll through any sections that you want to cover, but I'll let you introduce yourself. And in case people are not familiar with Simon Data, about the company and what you do as well.
Thanks a lot, Ray. And yeah, it was really a pleasure working with you on the blog post. The iterations and feedback that you provided were really helpful, and I'm thrilled with how it came out. Hey everyone, I'm Louis, the reporting team lead at Simon Data, and we've been working with Cube for a little over a year. I guess that makes us an earlier adopter, and it's been really good for us, enabling us to focus on the data and the UI when building in-app analytics features, and saving us a lot of effort in the infrastructure layer. So that's been a big success. We are still very much actively developing features on top of Cube, and we're enjoying that a lot. As I described in the article, the majority of the work that we've done so far integrating with Cube was around automating development and deployment. And the perhaps unique thing about our use case at Simon is we have many data warehouses, and the schema varies across them depending on the nature of the client's business. And so we needed to integrate Cube into that environment where we could configure it dynamically to work with the data in each different data warehouse. So that was the challenge that we faced, and the article goes into detail about the approach that we took to solve that. Taking a step back, what is Simon Data, and what are we doing with Cube? So Simon is a customer data platform with an integrated marketing platform for marketing automation, and the main value we deliver is enabling marketers at our clients to develop automated messaging campaigns to engage with their current customers, and do that in a way that covers up a lot of the complexity of the data powering those automated campaigns. And so we deeply integrate with our clients' databases and make that data available to their marketing teams. So that's kind of the reason behind why we have this complex multi-tenant environment, and kind of speaks to the nature of the challenge we faced.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks for the background. And then, in terms of question, I think I saw Ethan online a few minutes ago on Zoom as well. And Ethan posted this question on Discourse. And Louis, I don't know if you saw it. Ethan, do you want to, if you feel comfortable, verbalizing your question or adding more detail with, before I ask Louis to sort of address this question, is there anything else that you want to add here? Or
yeah, hi there, everyone. Great post in general, so thank you for sharing. We have a very similar use case that we're building out right now. It's very basic, but the long-term solution would look certainly more like Simon Data solution. So yeah, I would just love to learn more about the nitty-gritty technical aspects of it, and see what we could learn from it.
Great. Yeah, I'm happy to answer questions about that. So the article goes to a certain level of detail. I tried to not get too deep because I didn't want to lose the readers. But it really covers pretty much everything in the approach that we took. I guess one thing that I didn't really go into too much detail here about was the way that we organize these different schemas and sources. We have many of them. They're versioned. We have different sources for different features, and managing all of those is really very closely connected to the rest of the platform at Simon, and so it's very specific to our particular system. And so I didn't go into that the details of that in the article, because I figure that's where companies will need to figure out how to integrate with their own applications. But if you have specific questions, be happy to speak more about that.
I don't know if I should derail, but maybe we can set up some time later to go into nitty-gritty detail, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I'm on the Cube.js Slack channel, and feel free to ping me there.
Fantastic. Looking forward.
Yeah, or I mean,
Thank you.
also if you want to continue the conversation, I mean, unless Ethan, there are information that you're not comfortable sharing publicly, like either on Slack or Discourse. If you want to continue the conversation on Discourse, I think other folks can probably learn from your conversation as well. I mean, the other thing that I wanted to mention was that I believe this is a first user story that includes like a Snowflake, and I know a lot of other folks are interested. So I think I know there's at least like one other client that's interested in implementation with Snowflake as well. So either Slack or Discourse. But I mean, we already have a thread sort of started in Discourse, so I think that'll be cool. So yeah, somebody else is doing a +1 on Zoom on Snowflake implementation. So
yeah, I'll just add a quick note about Snowflake. I mean, we're using Snowflake extensively at Simon. I think we've also published a case study with Snowflake. I don't have the link handy, but it's out there, and we can, Ray, we can post that somewhere after the call. Right. But for my team's use, getting Cube.js to run queries on Snowflake, it was super easy. We just provided credentials, and Cube.js was able to query it pretty much out of the box. So, highly encourage anybody interested in using Cube with Snowflake to give it a try. Shouldn't be too difficult.
Cool. Well, thanks, Igor. I think he already found the link to the Snowflake article, so appreciate that. It's so people on Zoom that's on chat. I'll post it on Livestream as well. I think Rohit also had a question. You're curious about additional experience with integrating versioning into your schema management. For example, coordinating changes to your core with other upstream data sources.
Sure. Yeah, I'm happy to speak to that. That's really one of the most interesting things about our integration with Cube.js, in my opinion. And so the first proof of concept implementation that we did was it was in Python, and we set up config files where we had a Python file with some very simple classes to model a cube resource, a view resource, and a table resource, kind of following the pattern of Puppet, or I guess to some degree Kubernetes, where you have a declarative config file and then the code manages deployment. So we took that approach, but in a very simplistic way, where we could write the cube JavaScript, the view SQL, and then tie them together in a declarative config file, and then very light deployment script that would ship the view into Snowflake by running a create view statement, and ship the cube JavaScript into Cube.js by literally writing the JavaScript file into a directory and then deploying Cube.js server with that directory into Lambda. So it was very simplistic, very straightforward, but it proved the approach. We've since replaced that simplistic config file approach with one that's built into our core platform, driven by an application with a user interface and storing state in a database. And so that framework, that conceptual framework of modeling these as discrete features or sources that can be deployed atomically was really key to scaling this up.
Cool. Thanks, Louis. Rohit, hopefully that answers most of the questions you had, but if you have additional follow-ups, then feel free to type it on chat or unmute yourself and verbalize your questions. Be great too.
Thanks. That was a good question.
Yeah. So actually, one of the things I don't think I asked you, Louis, was you've been working on this for about a year. I mean, how many folks at Simon Data were involved in this work, like deploying Cube.js over the like the past 12 months or so? Like and then who some of those folks are, what roles they're in, whether in like a backend engineers or et cetera, et cetera.
Sure. So all in all, over the last year, probably count about 10 people at any given time, about 5 working on it on the team.
Cool.
People have come and gone from the team, and other folks have gotten involved, subject matter experts on Snowflake or this or that technology, in terms of the roles, so I mean, we're mostly full stack developers, and so we move between front end and back end. We do have data engineers that are real experts in Snowflake and managing data there, and they've been really helpful. Yeah, I don't know. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thanks. So yeah, I mean, it's actually like a pretty similar from number wise, and from what I've heard from even previous like user stories, I would hear numbers ranging from like the 3 to 5 people that were involved in the work, and including like data engineers. So cool. And checking for other questions as well. But the other thing that I think, I mean, during like after like we started like reviewing some your write-up, I mean, one of the things that we talked a lot about, it probably bears discussing is I mean, how important it was for you to like at Simon Data to run everything on your laptop, like including the playground and the web app. So if you want to talk a little bit more about that, it's in particular is this paragraph. It starts with one neat trick that you pulled off, and yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting, and how that's working for you.
Yeah, this really comes down to my philosophy of how to be an effective software engineer. And one thing that I think is very important is having a very short iteration loop to be able to write code and see it run. And so this was something that we explored very early on when we started using Cube.js, was figuring out, is there a way that we can run, how much can we run on our laptops to resemble production? And we found out that it was quite a lot. The only thing that we can't do on our laptops is actually execute the big data queries in Snowflake. Those have to run in Snowflake.
Right.
But just about everything else we were able to get working on our laptops, which was great. And the neat trick here was we use AWS Lambda for our Cube.js deployment. And so when you read the docs, you see that you have an AWS handler for bootstrapping Cube.js in Lambda, and you have I forget what the name of the class is, but you have another class that you use for bootstrapping Cube.js when you're running in on Node on your laptop. And so we figured out we could write a common configuration in to pass in options to both of those handlers that would be, a common bootstrap that would use the same logic when running locally or in Lambda. And so that enabled us to build support for multiple environments like dev, staging, prod, and ephemeral environments, and be able to run that, pretty much seamlessly with the same code in any environment. That's been really valuable since we've been, building on top of Cube.js.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, we have another question on Zoom chat from Jonathan. Let me see if I can read through this. Has there been any thinking or plans for more first-class multi-tenant configuration management? For example, managing config for each data source Cube directly via an API, as opposed to Cube.js reaching out to an external API.
If that's a question for you more than for me.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like, I know Pavel is on. Like, I mean, Pavel, do you want to like answer that question or?
Yeah, sure. I just let me briefly dive it in. So the question is, yeah.
Can you see the Zoom chat, or I can? I can read it again.
I can see the Zoom chat.
Yeah.
I just thinking. Oh yeah, it's a great question. So. So I guess the question, what's the best way to manage multi-tenant schemas, right? So
yeah, this is Jonathan.
Yeah, hey Jonathan.
Hey, yeah. So this is actually was prompted by the Simon data use case. I think you were mentioning you were managing some of the schemas in your own data store. So you kind of were managing them outside of the Cube files. Is that correct?
Yeah. So we initially, our first proof of concept was having code that would generate the Cube files and print, basically write them into a directory.
Right.
That would be read, in Cube.js server. And then we switched to using the driver, the schema factory, where Cube.js now can make a request to our API to fetch those Cube JavaScript files. And
right.
so instead of having Python code generate files, we now have Python code serving an endpoint that produces.
Yeah. So my question is, like, has there been any thought of given your migration to that, like inverting that flow? So instead of Cube reaching out to you, you are managing, you're hitting an endpoint for, post to /cubes or whatever, and or a put on cube /123, and you're updating it, and you're more interacting with Cube.js as a server as opposed to the other way around. Just wondering if that's come up before, and just thinking through your use case, it seems like, I mean, I know that's what our use case is kind of pushing on. So
yeah, I mean, I can definitely say that, this poll-based approach where we just make things available and Cube.js grabs them when it needs them has worked really well for us. And so we haven't really thought about moving to, pushing schemas into Cube.js. I'm sure we could make it work either way, but what we found out of the box worked really well for us. One thing that's been really nice about this pull-based, I guess you could call it pull-based integration, is, we're managing multiple versions of a schema. And when we're deploying a new version, because this is the web and it's a distributed environment, deploys are not atomic. And like this diagram that we see here, we can switch our web code to a new version, but there are still browsers out there that maybe have, the previous version on the page. And it'll take, a few minutes or maybe longer for those to get reloaded. So having the ability for our system to serve all versions at once, and Cube.js to serve any request with whatever version is in that request, has made our jobs really easy. So I'm pretty happy with the model that we have.
Cool, thanks. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, and I can follow up here as well. So it's essentially a blue-green deployment setup, and it's a great implementation at Simon Data. It's very similar to what we did also in Cube Cloud. So in Cube Cloud, for example, what we do is actually we are using Git under the hood. so we don't use any like files or anything. And we have different versions of Cube.js running basically simultaneously. So, and when you deploy new version, it basically builds your right now separate artifact, which is packed as tar.gz, and it's pretty similar to what Heroku does on their servers and what Simon Data does by like replacing files. So it's not separate Docker image; it's just like schema configuration packet as an archive. And the next step is undergoing upgrade of the systems. So the first step is, for example, if you have pre-aggregations, you need to warm them up and ensure that all pre-aggregation are in place before you switch and serve the new API, as this Simon Data does in this example. So, and also testing out the schema that everything works before switching the version. And once all this process is done, you can switch like API to the new version. And all this, like under the hood, Cube.js supports you running multiple versions within the same cluster. So for example, if you have a Redis, and so you have in a cluster multiple versions of your schema, they can work together in a single cluster. So, and it also works with pre-aggregations. So you can have multiple versions of the same pre-aggregation table and serving by different instances simultaneously without any conflicts. So yeah, so it's basically how it can be done. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks a lot.
Cool. Thanks, Pavel. All right. So yeah, I think we're about out of time for your user story, but I mean, I encourage people to, I mean, whether it's on Slack or Discourse. I mean, we already have a topic on the user story on Discourse, so feel free to follow up with questions. And I mean, thanks, Jonathan, Rohit, Ethan, and others for your questions, and thanks again, Louis, for your contributions and coming here today.
Thank you. Yeah, this has been great. Thank you for all the great questions.
All right, thanks. Cool. So next up is our popular feature demo. And Hassan, do you want me to stop sharing so you can share your screen?
That's fine. I'll just let you know. Yeah, sure. I can share my screen.
Okay, cool. Yeah, either way works. Let me stop sharing then.
Cool. Can everyone see?
Yep.
Cool. Awesome. So, hi everyone. Welcome to the call. Before we jumped into the feature demo, I want to take a quick moment to talk about Cube Store. As you all hopefully already know, Cube Store is our brand new pre-aggregation storage layer that we've recently made generally available. It was born from the issues that we found creating and managing pre-aggregations at scale. Prior to Cube Store, external databases were the tool of choice. However, we found that with larger data sets, external databases often suffer, and this becomes painfully obvious at large scale. So we decided to create our own database, one that was built up for dealing with pre-aggregations at scale. So just a little bit with regards to the architecture, Cube Store on a high level uses multiple processes requiring one router node and one or more worker nodes. The way this works is a query comes into the router node, and the router node communicates with worker nodes, and worker nodes will read or write persisted aggregations. The pre-aggregations are stored as Parquet files on either a local system or cloud storage, such as S3 or GCS. We're very happy to have it in GA, and we're so confident in it that you can use it in production on Cube Cloud today if you have an account. So Ray earlier mentioned that the blog post of introducing Cube Store, I would heavily recommend everyone on the call to give it a read. It's really good and goes into some more detail about Cube Store and how it fits into the data analytics stack. I stole one of the diagrams for this slide, just because I thought it would be useful to show everybody what a typical data analytics stack with Cube.js and Cube Store would look like. So here we have our Cube.js API that queries are sent to. And there's a Cube.js refresh worker, which is responsible for keeping our pre-aggregations and everything up to date and leaving the API to only respond to requests. We have a Redis server, which I'm sure most of you are very aware of, part of the stack required. And then we have our Cube Store cluster taking the spot of where an external database might have been. And as you can see, the API and the refresh worker communicate with the router, and the router is responsible for communicating with the workers. So how do we use it? We provided Docker images, Cube.js/Cube Store, and if you want to play around with it, you can add it to your Docker Compose stack like this, or if you just want to run it in isolation, you can use the Docker run command. However, in development mode, you won't need to do this with Cube.js. In development mode, it comes Cube Store comes enabled, so you just need to set external true within your pre-aggregation definition, and you can use it in development. For production, as I mentioned earlier, we recommend router and worker nodes, and I thought I'd show you a very simplified example of what a Docker Compose stack with separate router and worker nodes might look like. So as you can see, this is just the service name, Cube Store router, using the image Cube.js/Cube Store. And on this container, we are defining Cube Store workers as an environment variable with Cube Store _worker1 port 1001. If we look at the Cube Store worker1 definition, it's also using the same image, but we've set the server name to match that name that's in the workers comma separated list. And this continues on for as many workers as you need. You can set, this would depend on your scale, how many instances you need active, how much data is being moved around. You can find a lot more information on the documentation. We've updated the caching section, specifically using pre-aggregations and running in production. As always, we appreciate any feedback about improvements we could make or things we could clarify in the docs. So please do let me know, ping me on Slack or whichever channel is comfortable for you. And yeah, that's that about Cube Store. We can go in the feature demo I have today, which is migrating a Cube.js project to Cube Cloud. So just to get us started, I have a project already, a Cube.js project. We have some schemas. We don't have very much configuration, and looking at the Docker Compose stack, it's very bare bones. So we want to move this project onto Cube Cloud. So let's first go to Cube Cloud and create a deployment. I'm going to give this deployment a name. And from here, we can choose our cloud platform and region. I'm going to stick with the defaults here, which is AWS and US East 1. And from here, I'm going to click the Upload with CLI button. Once I click that, I'll now have a bash command available to me, which I'll copy to my clipboard. And sorry, I'm just going to move the Zoom previews. I simply paste that into my terminal inside the project. hopefully the file should be uploaded and we can go back to Cube Cloud and continue. Okay, it says it's done. There we go. Now we'll need to set up the database again. I'm going to use Postgres for this example. I'll click apply. It will take a few minutes for the deployment to spin up. In the meantime, let me boot the one that we had locally, the Cube.js project, and we can use that to compare the data that we had inside Cube Cloud once it is ready. So I've got a query here, which is orders by status. Let's click run and set it to a table. There we go, we've got some data. If we go to Cube Cloud and wait for the deployment to spin up, we can use that to compare. The deployment is now up and running. Let's go to the playground and set up the same query. There we have it. Values seem to match, and we've successfully migrated a project onto Cube Cloud. From here, we can generate more schemas if we like, or we could grab this URL from here and put it in our existing application, so we can move the front end application over to using this API too. Awesome. So yeah, that was it from the feature demo side. I hope that made sense. And yeah, are there any questions?
Yeah, I'm gonna check the chat here. Good positive feedback.
It is, yeah, it is
Yeah.
very quick. It is very, very quick. So I just thought I would show everyone just how quick it is. So hopefully you guys can try it out. And if there are any problems, again, feel free to ping me on Slack or GitHub, and we'll try and make it right.
Cool. Thanks, Hassan. Are there other questions? Checking through Livestream as well. It doesn't seem like there are any. So yeah, I guess that's a wrap for this month. I mean, thanks everybody, including Lewis and others, for joining. Thanks for all your questions. And yeah, if you have any questions or suggestions for like a future topics or even future demos, and just let us know. I'd love to hear it. Yeah, just, I mean, we can come up with topics and demos, but if it's not relevant to you, it's not going to be very productive. So just let us know, and love to hear your feedback. All right. Well, I hope you have a good rest of your day, and we'll do this again next month. Have a good one.
Bye.
Thanks.